We get to Renee Stonebridge, Chief Medical Examiner that did autopsies on all three children. We start off with Cora. Cora's eyes were acute hemorrhaging. The optic nerve sheath had some hemorrhaging of the left eye. Dawson's was eyes, some acute hemorrhaging. Right eye had small hemorrhage in the posterior retina optic nerve. And for little Callan, she had the brain, the dura, the spinal cord, and eyes. The findings was hypoxic ischemic changes. Means there was some sort of incident that caused the brain to have certain amounts of time where blood and oxygen were not going to the brain. Edema, brain swelling, compression of ventricles. They're like a tunnel system, she explained, inside the brain that allows for the cerebral spine fluids to flow through to the brain and go into the spinal cord. Brain starts to swell inwards on itself. Once the brain has lack of oxygen, it starts dying 6 to 8 minutes, and once it dies, it can't be brought back.
Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and Callan Clancy.
Yes.
And specifically for Cora Clancy, what did you examine?
For Cora Clancy, I examined the eyes.
And what were your findings when you examined her eyes?
The findings when I examined the eyes were that there was acute hemorrhage of the extraocular muscles and adipose tissue, hemorrhage in these portions of adipose tissue and muscle that is surrounding the eye itself. And then also one of the findings was that the optic nerve sheath on the left side has some punctate hemorrhage. So the eyes, they're sitting in the head, and then there's the optic nerve that connects to the back of the eye and goes to the brain, which sends these signals so people can see. And there was some hemorrhage in this portion surrounding the nerve that connects the left eye.
In terms of Dawson Clancy, what did you examine with Dawson Clancy?
For Dawson Clancy, I examined the eyes as well.
And what were your findings?
The findings were that there was also some acute hemorrhages in these muscle and adipose tissue surrounding the eyes. And then the right eye had some small hemorrhages in the posterior retina and the optic nerve sheath. So the back of the eye, there's the retina within the eye, and the retina connects with the optic nerve at the back portion of the eye. And in this case, there was a little bit of hemorrhage at that connection point where the retina connects to the optic nerve.
In terms of Callan Clancy, what did you examine with Callan Clancy?
For Callan Clancy, I examined the brain, the dura, the spinal cord, and the eyes.
And what were your findings?
The findings were that there was hypoxic ischemic changes. Essentially, that means that there has been some sort of incident which has caused the brain to have a certain period of time in which blood and oxygen flow were not appropriate. So in this case, there was a time frame in which there was no blood going to the brain, there wasn't enough oxygen going to the brain, and the brain will show certain findings in these sort of circumstances. One of the things I note is that there's edema. Edema is when the brain starts to swell. Edema is also a very general finding. It can happen in many instances, but the edema basically means that the brain starts to swell, so you don't have the nice kind of bumpy pattern on the brain. It starts to swell up, and it gets a little more flattened because the brain is encased in the skull, so now it's pressing against the skull because it's swelling up and getting bigger. One of the other things I noted with that was that there was compression of the ventricles. So the ventricles are almost like a tunnel system inside the brain that allow for the cerebral spinal fluid to flow through the brain and go into the spinal cord. And when the brain starts to swell up, it not only swells up outwards, but swells inwards on itself as well. So these ventricles that are located in the inside portion of the brain are starting to get kind of squashed because the brain is swelling.
And once brain tissue dies, it can't be brought back, correct?
Correct, yes.